I've been wanting to ask you this question with your history and transportation and stuff. What do you think about high-speed rail in Kansas?
There is passenger transportation in Kansas, but there's always been limitations about where it goes to. And so you have some infrastructure already in place. If you could improve that infrastructure and you could update it so that you could have those trains on the existing infrastructure, it is not a bad idea. It is a long way across the state. My daughter and I once took the train from Kansas City. We actually boarded in Lawrence and we got off the train in Garden City. You can understand why the train can't go so fast because those are freight sort of lines. And when I was at KDOT, I sat across the hall from the freight folks, the train folks, and I learned a lot, although I'm not an expert by any shape or form. But if you could improve it, it could be potentially really great because people do travel those routes on a relatively regular basis. And even if they're going on to somewhere else, having high-speed rail in Kansas would be, even if you had light rail, even if you got that adoption, that sort of trend towards adoption, it would be great. I'm one of those people that I've used rail any chance I got. So this last year I was traveling from Jacksonville, Florida down to Orlando, and I took the train there, and it is affordable. It is something that people can, you know, people that might not be able to afford to fly can still cut out a significant amount of time without being in that position where you have to have a car to get everywhere, you have to do this or that. And I know that doesn't really, high-speed rail is a slightly different thing, but if you could
Hmm.
align from Denver to Kansas City, that would significantly benefit, it would significantly benefit Kansas, especially for medical care and things like that, where you can get from one place to the other. You can get from a trauma center to, or from a rural hospital to a trauma center relatively quickly. And right now, we're depending on aviation for that. One of the published works that I have is using aviation for rural healthcare management, and you can do it. It's just incredibly expensive. You get the bill, you open it up, and you think, holy cow, but it could be the difference between life and death. And so, if
I
there
didn't
were
think
other
about
ways to do it,
healthcare with
it
it.
would be great if we can keep people in their homes longer. That was one of the workshops I've gone to already was the workforce development for long-term care facilities. They're just in desperate need of folks to work in those kinds of situations. And in rural communities, having folks that can provide in-home health care so that people can stay in their communities longer. I think it reduces a lot of the strain on the system in general and maybe improves our healthcare system overall. But
Yeah.
high-speed rail would be really super cool. I would be happy with light rail. Even just having, we do have dedicated funds for our rail system in Kansas, making sure that we keep that and manage that. And short line rails in Kansas are the ones that provide that last mile service for grain and for whatever it is, wind turbines, or for, you'll actually see here, you'll see the bodies of 737s running down the line. So that keeps us relevant in the national understanding of what Kansas is.
I just travel back and forth between Wichita and Topeka right now, every other weekend at least, if not every weekend. And so I would love to just get on a train and be able to work on my laptop, even if it wasn't that much faster.
The
And I
crazy
think,
thing we got proposed when I was at KDOT was to run transmission lines and then it almost was like a monorail system along transmission lines between Wichita and Topeka. The problem was, and then on to Kansas City. The problem was is that the financial backing required to do it was pretty significant, and yeah, it's a pretty risky proposition. So it never
yeah,
did advance very much, but it was really pretty cool to see the proposal. And you think about the overhead deal at Disney World. That's what I envisioned, although this was a little cooler sort of presentation, but that would be something else if you could ride in that kind of a system between Topeka and Wichita.
just with the stadium being built, people in Wichita can jump on the train, go to a Chiefs game, and jump on the train and come back.
Yeah.
And then people out in the rural areas can get to the city. I could live in one city and work in another if I
Hmm.
wanted to live. That's one of the main problems with the rural areas, right? Is that there's not jobs out there and you have to commute to a job
The
or
infrastructure is
work
there,
remote.
is the crazy part. The infrastructure in those small towns is there, and then we don't reuse it. We don't recycle it because there isn't a close place for them to work. There isn't a manufacturing facility. There isn't something else relatively close for them to work at. And so those small towns will evaporate, and that's just not great. It's not ideal. And And
Yeah.
we rebuild infrastructure. We just keep moving south here in Johnson County and keep rebuilding infrastructure when we have perfectly good infrastructure in other places.
Yeah, I interviewed Mark Shokowitz out in 110 earlier this year in Plainville, Kansas. We met in Hayes, but just 20 minutes up the road is Plainville. And I went and took some pictures and looked, and it's such a cute little city. But because Hayes is 20 minutes down the road, Plainville's in danger of going away, of being a ghost town, of being unincorporated, which is like
Yeah.
people are fearful that they will become part of the county.
Yeah, not for a lack of effort by Roger
Mhm.
Raby, who's the Rooks County economic developer out there. He has worked his behind off to keep them to try and maintain that relevance. And yeah, so it is a tough job when you get to those locations because yeah, it's you think about it, if you can't get from Plainville to Hayes, then you can't live in Plainsville.
No, you can't. Yeah, no, you can't. If you can't make it down the road 20 minutes, it's not like something you could walk or ride a bike even. I did the drive. You're not going to want to be a pedestrian in any way along that route through part of it. So yeah, I'm all for saving Plainville. It's such a cute little place. And I love everybody loves the little cities and all this stuff, and they love to go visit them and things, but nobody seems to really want to try to protect them in the way that I think we should be protecting the infrastructure of these little cities.
I agree. I agree. And I think in one of the surveys, you get 3,000 surveys, but one of those surveys, I think I made a special point of saying, hey, look, if we could protect that infrastructure, if we could not just do compliance, if KDHE's job was not just to shut down sewer systems and so forth and water systems and so forth, but to give us a background of what's available in those small towns, then we'd have a much better chance of keeping them.
Yeah. Yeah.